We are Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar, giving you a raw take on movies, television, and pop culture. My name's Chris.
Scott. I'm JB4.
And as a guest today, we have my buddy, Adam Zehner. So,
hello, everybody.
A to Z.
So Adam Zehner is, Adam and I have been knowing each other since elementary school, and we come back from a day to where if you read comic books or you played paper and pencil role-playing games, you got stuffed in a fucking locker. It's not cool like it is today, so... But Adam has a What is your last count? I know it's probably been years, but what's your last count on your comic book collection?
It's definitely in the thousands, maybe up to 10,000.
Wow. Damn. There it is. Yeah, Adam has an encyclopedic knowledge of comics, and what's good is that Adam will bring a sophisticated. And I'm thinking of Laddie. Look, when we want to throw a fucking hand grenade in the room, we bring in Laddie. But no disrespect to Laddie, because I got mad respect for him. But we're gonna bring Adam into. Adam's gonna kind of give his opinion on comic book history, how it applies to the MCU, and maybe what we can foresee in the future. So.
It's funny. I've seen Adam's comments on Facebook. And I always agree with them or respect the hell out of them. So it's nice to finally meet you in person, sir. Welcome.
There you go. Social media is an amazing thing. Yeah. So that's it, man. Awesome. All right, dude. Well, cool. First of all, let's get the real shit out of the way. Let's talk about Captain Marvel. So going back in a little bit of history with this character, and this is something that I've seen. It's not really so much confusion now, but it's something that's, of course, we have to go with the infighting, ball busting between Marvel and DC fans. The original Captain Marvel is who you know is Shazam, and that character was purchased by DC Comics, and DC didn't realize that they didn't hold the copyright to the name. So Marvel swooped in and copyrighted Captain Marvel and repurposed it as one of their own characters. But it started out as something. It was an offshoot of Guardians of the Galaxy, wasn't it, Adam? The Marvel?
No. Actually, Captain Marvel predates the Guardians of the Galaxy by quite a little bit of time. The original Captain Marvel was a male character whose name was Marvel. If you have seen the movie already, you will know that there was a callback to Marvel in the movie.
Oh, and fair warning, we are spoiling the shit out of this movie. So if you want to hold off on this episode, go check out Captain Marvel and then come on back.
Right. So, Marvel was a Kree soldier who had decided that he no longer he was sent to Earth basically to observe Earth, and then he eventually decided, well, now I'm going to become the Guardian. That like most heroes back in that time, it's kind of like we started out with the most cosmic heroes started out with one other purpose and then decided, hey, humanity is this great place and we want to protect it.
Superman, Green Lantern-ish.
Yeah. And he was definitely a cosmic hero, and for a while his supporting character was Rick Jones, which Rick Jones hasn't really appeared in the MCU yet, which I don't know if he ever will, but he was once the sidekick to the Hulk for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And he was even a sidekick to Captain America for a while. He's a sidekick to the original Captain Marvel. So he was kind of like the consistent sidekick that was kind of around in the 60s and the 70s. And for a while, what Captain Marvel would do was he had the Nega bands, and he would smack those bands together to gain his powers, and he would switch places with Rick Jones in the regular universe. This got all very convoluted.
Yeah, so you got all this. Yeah, you got that whole shit like Firestorm and Thor, where Thor had the alter ego stuff and all that.
So there was a lot of the alter ego stuff. So eventually, that Captain Marvel famously dies from cancer, which it was a big thing at the time. They did a special graphic novel. This is back when graphic novels were very rare. And he, when he died...
That's no doomsday, that's for sure.
Yes. When he died, there was for a time there wasn't a Captain Marvel. Then the Captain Marvel name was used again for a character named Monica Rambeau. Now, if you went and saw the movie, you will see a definite callback to her because Captain Marvel's flying buddy, I guess I was going to say wingman, but I guess I don't know if they're, who was who, wingman or whatever. But there was the little girl, she has a daughter, and the daughter's name is Monica. And her last name is Rambeau. So that's Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the just to cut in there on the Monica Rambeau character, that scene on that house in Louisiana was filmed about probably 30 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, because that was kind of the blow-up on social media for a while. They were like, Brie Larson, Jude Law, and Samuel L. Jackson seen in White Castle, Louisiana, which is about 30 minutes from my house. So
yeah, the thing that some people may not know also is that Monica Rambeau is a New Orleans character. She is from New Orleans, and back in that time, especially when I was a kid, you always kept track of who was from New Orleans because.
So we had Monica Rambeau and we had Swamp Thing. That's all the fuck we had.
And what we did eventually, we got Gambit.
Yeah,
we did eventually
get
Gambit.
Which that's going to come to a theater soon.
Yes, so maybe who knows?
In an
Probably
alternate
not.
universe, yeah.
So
just to continue a little bit, but basically, Monica Rambeau was around for a while. She actually led the Avengers for a while, and then she, as with most characters, start losing powers, things like that. So now we get to Carol Danvers,
which is the character featured in the movie.
The one that's featured here. Now, Carol Danvers, skipping back a little bit, she was a character known as Miss Marvel, and she actually was around from even back in the 70s as well. That is an incredibly complicated character history for Carol Danvers.
Which we won't get into that.
Right.
So,
but what they did was they basically elevated her to the position of Captain Marvel from being Miss Marvel to eventually becoming Captain Marvel. And she had always been in the Avengers for a long time. She had been in numerous different incarnations of the Avengers. So they have been really pushing her a lot in the last few years in the comic books.
Yeah.
So I can see why there was a lot of attention put in for this movie.
Well, of course, and I mean the thing with it is that it's also a chance to broaden the range. I mean, look, we all know that it's not so much the characters. I mean, the characters are immortal, but what it comes down to is the actors are getting a little long in the tooth, and we're getting to the point to where there's been some replacements. Obviously with Ruffalo taking over from Ed Norton as the Hulk, and also your boy taking over for Terrence Howard from Iron Man that plays James Rhodes. Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle.
So Don Cheadle is taking over for Terrence Howard, but it's going to get to a point eventually to where they're either going to write these characters out or they're going to recast them. And when you've built something for so long and you have powerhouse actors, especially like Robert Downey Jr., that just owns that Iron Man role, you have to kind of start creating these new characters, and preferably characters that are a little bit more interesting and different. Mm-hmm. The Avengers have now always been kind of a ground base kind of group. Thor is obviously the oddball, but you saw that happen with Scarlet Witch. They tried to put a character that had a little bit more power, but now adding the Miss Marvel and the Captain Marvel into it now you have a character that has some pretty fucking rockin' powers as shown in this movie. So.
And I think it's interesting to point out too what you were saying before, Chris, at the beginning, that there was the original Captain Marvel, which goes back to like the 40s and 50s, that is now Shazam, and he's got a movie coming out in a month.
Next week, I think. Right?
Yeah, it comes out next week if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, see, that's another reason why that name change now. It's being promoted as Shazam. The movie is being promoted as Shazam. And that's why they've decided to do that. Now in the comic books, I think that it's kind of hard for me to remember with DC exactly if in the current comic book he's going by Shazam now and not Captain Marvel.
He is going by Shazam because it's a copyright issue.
Yeah, they wanted to. It's the interesting thing now with the comic books is that the comic books sell so much less than what moviegoers are.
Oh yeah.
That now that really drives what shows up in the comic book.
Well, now let me ask you this: didn't DC get Captain Marvel later to become Shazam because they sued to get that character because he was too much like Superman.
Yes.
I thought.
Yes, correct.
So they sued to get that, but they didn't copyright the name.
And what's crazy,
and Marvel nailed them on that.
And what's crazy is that they sued Shazam, but it actually was quite the opposite. It's just that DC had more money to pull it off.
Right.
Really, honestly, Superman is the ripoff of the Shazam character. So, or Captain Marvel, whichever you want to call it, but
Okay.
yeah, we this is typically if this is the first time you're listening to the show, we typically kind of go with the history, a little bit of the character and the background of the things, but we now get into the movie, and we'll talk about that. First of all, just to highlight the plots real quick. It's Carol Danvers, who's played by Brie Larson. She is a soldier for a race called the Kree, and she has some kind of echoes in her memory that indicate that she's from Earth. You can't really tell exactly what it is, but she definitely has some hidden memories or some repressed memories that kind of come back in these little images. They are...
We'll stick a pin in that.
Right. There's basically a war that's going on with another race that's called the Skrulls, that are kind of like a reptilian race that can polymorph into anything. They can look like anybody they wish. Yeah, they're shapeshifters. So they're up against this. They're all in a race to kind of find this secret weapon, which apparently goes back to Earth. They find out that the weapon actually is a light-speed drive, and the Kree say that they want to use it to end the war with the Skrull, and the Skrulls say that they want to use it to end the war with the Kree. Well, come to find out, it looks like the Kree want to use it to actually decimate them, and the Skrulls just want to use it to escape, to find a new home.
Big twist.
So that's the big twist in the story. And what happens is that, yes, Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, does find out that she's from Earth, and she is able to reclaim her past and do the right thing. At least we think is the right thing. Scott and I were actually talking about that before the show went on the air, and it's getting into spoiler territory now. We're actually surprised that the Skrulls were billed as the faces, the good guys, in this movie. So,
yeah, that surprised me too. Because traditionally the Skrulls are adversaries of the Avengers. So I really thought that they might have, and they still could, set up for some of the other events that have happened in the comics. But I thought it was a cool twist.
Yeah, and
me too.
And I think also I read it online. What it had come down to was they said, when you talk about the Kree Empire and you talk about the Skrulls, really none of them are good guys. They're all a bunch of barbaric son of a bitches. Mm-hmm. It's just the thing with it is that the Kree, we've kind of seen that. It started out with the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie with Ronan the Accuser, which we see him return in this movie because this is a prequel of sorts. It takes place in the 90s.
Oh, it's a prequel, not of sorts.
So yeah, I mean, but it's a prequel, but in a series is what I mean. I mean, it's not like it's a prequel. It's a prequel to Marvel instead of being a prequel to the Avengers or something like that. But but I mean the deal with the
Skrull.
The deal with these Skrulls, I mean, now we're seeing them, and that's exactly it. I mean, like, fuck, they're good guys, and they're sympathetic, and holy shit, Barry Mendelsohn plays a fucking asshole in everything.
That's what I was about to say. It's a genius bit of casting as a misdirect, right? Ben Mendelsohn's almost always the heavy. So you're like, okay, he's the asshole, and then when he, spins the narrative, and there's the twist, and you're like, oh, shit, okay. I'm in. At least it worked for me.
And the Jude Law being the heavy, that was maybe the only thing that didn't work as well for me in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's not a good bad guy for me. But, it was fine.
I think he did well. I think he was okay.
I think he did well, but he didn't. I just didn't.
I thought it was satisfying that he said, "Put up your goddamn dukes," and she just shot him. I thought that was
great.
Well, one thing that I would like to, one thing that I would hope that would come out of the way that they handled the whole Kree Skrull war is that, and this has the potential that you could have Skrulls who are adversaries in the future, is that it's not about this nation or galactic empire is good guys and this galactic empire is bad guys. It's that this individual is a bad guy and this individual is a good guy.
Right.
And I think that could be developed to add more twists to everything. Where you don't look at it and go, oh, there's the Kree, they're here to do bad things, or oh, here's the Skrulls. It's the character, and that's what I'd like to see.
It's 25 years. I mean, if they go by the timeline that they're introducing, 25 years is a long time for bad shit or good shit or people to change at any point.
Well, and we're forgetting, of course, that we're going, if we get a Captain Marvel 2, it'll be after Infinity War Endgame, and who knows how that's going to shake things up, you know?
And that's what I agree with you, Scott. What's kind of cool about it is if they want to open that door, they can actually do a sequel to Captain Marvel that actually takes place before Avengers Endgame. And, you know, that's a thing I noticed today. I kind of threw it in the back of my mind because I was the first guy that said, well, dude, you're sitting here releasing trailers. We kind of know who lives. I'm sitting in the theater today, and they replayed that Spider-Man trailer. And when I sat there and I really watched it, I'm like, you know, they only show his suit from the first movie. They don't show any new and improved suit that he uses in Infinity War.
Except for that black one for like
a
fraction of a second.
But that's the thing, though. That's the question. They could go back and say, well, this takes place before. I mean, I think that's one kind of cool thing about Marvel is
I've always thought that movie possibly takes place before.
Well, they're so successful, and I mean, dude, the Avengers Infinity War is literally an unapologetic, fuck it, we're going to reward you for watching all these movies. I mean, somebody who doesn't know anything about the Avengers or any of those movies, if they walk in cold to Infinity War, they're not going to have any clue what's going on. Not a clue. And I think that's what's pretty cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have another thing you were talking about with just the way that like things build and way of like, hey, you don't really know what's going on is that, all these movies have now become so interconnected in the last 10 years. It dawned on me that Tom Holland is about to be the actor who's played Spider-Man the most. Yeah. And he's only been doing it for a few years compared to, say, Tobey Maguire. He's been in Civil War. He's been in Infinity War. He's been in Homecoming. He could be in Endgame, and he's definitely going to be in the Far From Home.
Yeah.
So he's already surpassed the other two recent people to play Spider-Man.
In filmic appearances, yes. That's very true.
Absolutely.
And it's, that is the thing about the MCU that I like is that we have it where these characters, I'm going to see a Spider-Man movie, but Nick Fury's going to show up in it.
Right.
The first Spider-Man movie that was done in the MCU had Iron Man in it, and it even had Happy, in it.
Right.
So there are these characters that will show up in these other characters' movies, and it really does give you the feel like, hey, all this stuff is going along, and it's all interconnected, and it makes you feel more like the real world.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's what makes it so awesome is definitely the interconnectivity of all this shit. And I mean, that's what everybody wanted. I was listening to a YouTube video with Kevin Smith, and he was talking about back in the day when Warner Brothers brought him on board to do some work for developing a Superman script. And he said that he had a conversation with a guy who was at the time was the head of Warner Brothers, like sat him down and said, we own all these comic book characters, and you seem to kind of know a lot about this stuff. Do you want to like front up like a movie universe that like deals with the DC characters? And you're talking, this is back in the late 90s. And he said at the time, he's like, man, like I just got like the gold ribbon pinned on me for Chasing Amy. And he said at that time, like, I go and make Clerks. I'm an overnight success. I go and make Mallrats. My name's in the gutter. I go and make Chasing Amy. I'm back on top again. So he said, being back on top again, I don't want to take all these crazy risks when I am in a community where I feel I belong.
Right.
So, and the Superman thing didn't pan out, and I highly recommend that to anybody. The Death of Superman Lives documentary. Go watch that shit. It's phenomenal. It's really awesome.
Speaking of Kevin Smith and possibly one of the best Stan Lee cameos in the entire MCU cinematic, every film. If you haven't seen it, here it is. Stan Lee. The movie takes place in the 90s, so of course everything is set in that time frame. Captain Marvel jumps on the bus. You see it in a commercial. It's when she's looking for the old lady, and she's walking. As she's walking by, Stan Lee is one of the passengers on the bus, and Stan Lee is reading a script from Mallrats and muttering the lines that he says in the movie while she walks past, and that's it. That's the best one I've ever seen.
I think what makes it the best cameo is the fact that he's finally playing himself. And I think that's what's cool. He's playing Stan Lee. And here's some backstory for you. Kevin Feige, who's the mastermind of all this stuff, he calls Kevin Smith on the phone and he says, hey, you've been paying homage to us. We're going to pay a little homage to you. This is what we're going to do. Kevin Smith, of course, he says, I'm crying on the phone, because he's hyper emotional about nerd shit. But this is what's really cool. He called him up and he said, look, Stan, when we filled this cameo, we knew this was kind of at the end of his life. We couldn't really get good lines. So did you happen to have any audio from Mallrats of him taking multiple takes? And he says, well, I don't own it, but it's out there somewhere. He says, I'm sure you can call Paramount, who owns the movie, and they got it. Sure enough, Feige got in touch with Paramount, that they have a relationship with because they have the rights to the Hulk. He called them up, and sure enough, the Stan Lee lines that you're hearing in the movie is actually his outtakes from Mallrats.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
And I wanted to just take a moment to say that as anybody who's gone and seen the movie, you'll see very early that there's a little tribute to Stan Lee. And
it was beautiful.
One thing that you will see in the comic book community is there's a lot of people who will sometimes criticize Stan because there are other creators that are involved in the process too. But there was one thing that I wanted to just say about Stan Lee in regards to his tribute in the movies, and that is that Stan Lee had a lot to do with pushing the Marvel media into things other than just comic books, the magazine business. Some of us who are, old enough will remember that there was the Spider-Man TV show.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Watch that shit every Saturday.
We had the Captain America TV show. We had the Incredible Hulk, of course, which is well known.
I remember the live action Spider-Man TV show with a fucking sweet guitar, like wah-wah guitar theme. I still remember it.
Yeah, and he was, and of course there was a lot of cartoons also before you had the movies too. So as an executive, as somebody who was in the management of that company, he was doing a lot to get us to the point where we are right now, where we have these movies where, people have to stop looking at it as an exclusion of those other creators like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and John Romita. And, they have to look at it as, look, we're paying tribute to Stan Lee because of the things that he did. He
was an evangelist.
I don't see how anybody can be pissed off about anything because really, honestly, I mean, dude, Stan Lee, I'm just, go back to Kevin Smith. He said it perfectly. The best character that Stan Lee ever created was Stan Lee.
Oh,
and that was it.
Correct.
I mean, it was it. He was like he's like a ringleader. He was like the town crier. He was a pitch man.
Excelsior.
That was his thing. And that was the whole deal. He without question, Adam. I mean, look, and I'm not taking a shit, especially on Jack Kirby. I'm not taking a shit on him at all. In fact, when Disney opened up their new Hall of Fame, they inducted Stan, Jack Kirby, and Mark Hamill all in one shot after they got all that stuff, and all those things that were recognized now as being under the umbrella of the brand. I think that all of the right people got inducted at the right time. You can't take a shit on anything that Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or John Romita Sr. or any of those guys. I mean, dude, it's all part of it.
It's one of those things where people have to understand that these men are very old men. And Jack Kirby lived to be in his early 70s, but Jack Kirby died in the early 90s, way before any of this was done. If Jack Kirby was still around today, living to be 99 or whatever years old, he would get just as much accolade, for this. It's just that the man died, before all of this began.
I have to say my favorite Stan Lee cameo is still Deadpool, the first one, where he's in the strip club, followed a close second by Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the movie? likes, dislikes.
I'll tell you about the things I like about it. I love the stuff with the Skrulls and the Kree. I love watching the expansion of the meta plot, so to speak. I like to watch that stuff. I like how they connect things together. You know, they established a lot of stuff with the Kree and Guardians of the Galaxy. Now you saw even more backstory. You actually saw the Kree homeworld. You saw those things. You saw Ronan the Accuser. You actually saw some other characters like Damon
Dijman Anasu.
Dijman Anasu, that's it. So you saw him. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy, and his character, he's playing the same character in this. And it's cool to see that shit and all that connection. I like the soundtrack. I mean, look, dude, I was 21 in 1995. I mean, dude, I relived all that shit. It was great. I thought it was really funny to see Brie Larson walk around, and she's wearing her Shield baseball cap with a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt with a flannel tied around her waist with combat boots and cut-off jeans. I mean, I look at that was my life, you know. So I mean, dude, I remember all that shit, and it was cool. You know, it was good. I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, as far as all that stuff is concerned, good story. I mean, entertaining. The only thing that I really didn't like, I thought that the way Nick Fury lost his eye was totally fucking lame. I thought that was totally lame. I'm like, dude, you're talking about and now especially a character now, to what's really cool is you see the guy. I mean, dude, if you think about it, he's the second guy there. Tony Stark was the first one.
Right.
Nick Fury, now, he's the second guy in the fucking deal. So when he starts showing up, I mean, it was him and Iron Man. That's how it all... That's before the band got together. It was them that put it all together.
Yeah.
So now, as you learn more about Nick Fury and you see more about him, which you learn even more shit about him in Civil War and some of his background stuff and him having the eye scan in the Triskelion and all that shit in Winter Soldier is awesome. Yeah. Now you're looking at another movie where, man, you're looking at him in the 1990s, and you're learning even. I mean, dude, he gives you his whole resume,
right?
And you're like, man, this is fucking cool. And I mean, a character that's this badass and this legacy, and especially a normal guy that just has the foresight and sees the things that he sees, actually puts together a group of superheroes to protect the Earth.
Right.
He loses his eye by getting a fucking scratch by a fucking cat? Come on! You're killing me. You're busting my balls.
That's the perfect way to lose his eye.
Because you're a fucking dingleberry.
Whatever. They can't all be fucking bombs and
exactly.
Sword play.
Yeah, right. Jokey joke. Let's jokey joke Nick Fury's fucking eye. This is horrible.
Well, I know, but
it didn't ruin the movie for me.
It didn't. Yeah. I mean, conversely, in X-Men First Class, They explained why Xavier was in a wheelchair, and I barely even fucking remember it. I know that it had to do with Magneto doing, it almost doesn't matter.
Don't care.
You know? Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
Just so you know, in the comic books, Professor Xavier lost his ability to walk by having a giant block dropped on him.
Oh, okay. That's a little straight up Looney Tunes right there.
He,
like a piano.
Deflected bullets is what got him in First Class.
Yeah. So Adam, what did you like or dislike about the movie?
Well, first of all, I thought that this representation of the Kree was probably the best that I've seen.
Wow.
In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Kree had been involved before. They had also been, with Ronan, some of the other cameos in some of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I just really liked how they talked about the Supreme Intelligence, about they had the Star Force. Some of those names to the other members of the Star Force, other than Jude Law's character, are also characters that were in the old comic books. So I thought that was really great. I will say that as somebody who has read some of the Skrull stories, and one that was very well known from a couple of years ago, actually, which was the Secret Invasion. It would have been nice to have seen a little bit more setup for something like that. But I understand that they are supposed to be kind of the good guys in this movie.
Now, I wanted to ask you about that because I was always under the assumption that's where we were leading after Endgame. Like,
right, that's what I really thought,
maybe
too.
like a twist or something like that in Endgame. But now that they are the good guys, I mean, I guess they could. 25 years is.
I have a theory, but we'll continue
misdirect.
that after our JB's done with his
like one
critiquing.
thing that for anybody who's listening that knows the comic books a little bit, one of the things I was really hoping that would have been dropped is that there's a point where one of the Skrulls is lying dead in like a morgue, a shield morgue, and Mendelsohn, as the Skrull leader, he leans down and he's kind of talking to him, and I was really hoping he was going to say he loves you, because that is a callback to the Secret Invasion, because the when the Skrulls would have done, when they did things that they thought like, hey, basically, I'm gonna die or something like that, like that was a callback to their deity, is that saying he loves you, because that's what they would say, kind of like how we here on Earth say that, depending on what your religion
Jesus
is.
loves you.
Yeah, Jesus loves you. It would be he loves you. They would say that, and I thought it would have been a cool little thing just for the Skrull culture that they would have done that. But now getting on to some of the other parts of the movie, I'm just utterly amazed by the technology that's used to de-age some of these actors.
My
to have
God.
these throwback and flashback scenes.
I don't think Coulson looked good.
Yeah, Coulson didn't look as
I
good.
Didn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't think Sammy J was de-aged as we think he is.
Yeah,
that
he's
dude just looks great.
Yeah, he does. I
Yeah.
mean, like, he's almost 70 years old. I mean, and the guy looks like he did, years
You could tell
ago.
from some of those fight scenes for sure.
Yeah,
So.
it's
whatever.
It's like Denzel Washington. I mean, the man just doesn't age, and Samuel Jackson is just like that too. And yeah, especially there's a part where like Samuel Jackson's running through that kind of library area where they have like that vault where they have the info, and you kind of look at him and you're like, yeah, that's like a 60-year-old man running. you know?
Oh, and throwback, the shield, the facility that they go to go find the. That's the actual facility that's in Avengers 1 that Loki shows up to steal the Tesseract
That's
from.
I thought
Yeah,
it looked
that is
like
it.
that.
That's been
that's cool. I didn't
that's
even
been
realize
confirmed.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
Project
okay.
Pegasus comes from the comic books also.
Yeah.
So that was a cool little thing for me, that when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, look at that. They put Project Pegasus in.
What about you, JB? What'd you think, dude?
So I thought the sequence where they're scrubbing through her memory was outstanding. Where she ejected, and he's like, no, like back it up. I guess that's because I'm an editor. So I really connected with that, and there was some ambiguity because it opened with flashbacks of that event through the lens of it happening in the Kree culture, right? So that I thought was the actual flashback, and then when they were trying to access her brain, I thought that it was a Kree countermeasure to throw them off, knowing that they'd hack her brain, but in fact they were in her actual memories, and what we saw before was a Kree device. So that was, I thought, really like triple mindfuck, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the cat. I thought Deuce was hilarious. Formerly Chewie, right, in the comics.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not read a lot of the newer Captain Marvel stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't really familiar with but I can see why they would have changed it.
Yeah, it's a movie for cat people for sure. There's a lot of funny moments with that, and I really enjoyed the movie. I also was very impressed, and I didn't really realize until I walked out that I could only think of a handful of movies like Resident Evil, and that's about it off the top of my head, where the female lead, her narrative never involved any romantic interest at all. It was singular, mission based, and her dealing with her identity. And I thought they did a really good job of making it kind of asexual, I guess.
I agree.
It was sort of, I would say, emotionless. Not in the sense of like, there were no.
Well, that's a big thematic in the movie. Is you can be your own worst enemy if you give in to your emotions.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. At the end of it, she says, "I found out that it wasn't from withholding anything. It was the fact that you all were holding me back."
Yeah.
And that's what the whole snap is, which is
I've got
great.
nothing to prove to you anymore.
Yep,
that was
absolutely.
When I was watching the trailers, I'd mentioned this to Chris, and I'd mentioned this to some other people that I knew, that I was kind of saying to myself, oh man, I really don't know about Brie Larson in this role, because it just seemed like I expected her to be a little bit more fiery and more like hey, I'm ready to take on Thanos. Like, not
Yeah.
that she's going to take on Thanos, but
Wow.
that she would have the potential, like, I'm ready to get you. But then after watching the movie, I realized that is what the portrayal of the character is, that she is this kind of even, don't get excited, take it easy. It goes beyond just even the parts in the beginning of the movie.
Right. Until where's Fury?
Yes.
Right.
Then she looks like she's pretty pissed.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and bringing that up, and I think that's probably the biggest plot hole in the movie, is the fact that if Fury had this pager to page her, why wouldn't he use the pager during the Battle of New York against the Chitauri? I mean, yeah, he's got the Avengers, but dude, I mean...
Yeah, they did a lot of damage.
I don't know
Right,
the
they
plot
did a
hole.
lot-
I just think that's we don't know yet.
Well, I think that's the big but it goes back to the old question. When you make movies like this, if so-and-so is going through such catastrophic shit, where's the other guys?
Same with Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy, they're kind of like, it's almost like they're a sub-franchise.
But Guardians of the
recently.
Galaxy 2,
Yeah,
when
Guardians 2.
Yeah, when the big old evil
Blob or
alien
whatever.
bread was
Well, I mean,
blowing up.
but I think an even more obvious example is something where you have I think what's even more
I think Black Panther is the more obvious example.
there's a bunch of them. I mean, even Iron Man 3. I mean, dude, they're threatening the fucking president of the United States, and there is a alpha fucking level terrorist that's fucking up shit.
Right.
Where's the Avengers?
Right.
Where's Captain America? Where is he?
Captain America's trying to get
But that's the
laid or
thing. You
something.
just got to kind of You just got to kind of suspend those things. Yeah, he's clicking
On
shit
Tinder,
off.
yeah.
He's watching Star Wars. He's clicking shit off of his stuff
Yeah.
I should do list. So that's it. But look, we got a couple of minutes left. Just really quick. Moving forward, I mean, we kind of see where it is. We have the end game, and I think the end game is kind of a double meaning. It's the end game of the massive storyline that they've built, but I think it's also going to be the end of this segment of the story they've told, and they're going to launch something entirely new.
Well, yeah, the 20th Century Fox deal goes through in
Yeah, it
about
goes
2
through
weeks,
like next
too.
week. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's the 20th. So we're talking like 6 days that goes
Yeah.
down. But every indicator out there's a lot of rumors flying around that the next big story arc that you're going to see is going to be the Avengers versus the X-Men. That's going to be the next big thing they're going to do. That's what they say. Me personally, I would like to see them relaunch the Fantastic Four and see Doctor Doom as a
Loki.
mega villain. That basically is the villain. They sign somebody to do Doctor Doom and say, okay, look, dude, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make 10 movies that are going to rotate around all these characters, that are going to revolve around all these characters. You're going to be the villain in every fucking movie. And
I totally agree with that. I would
be
love
pretty
to see
awesome.
that because he is basically the arch enemy of the Marvel Universe.
of everybody. And I mean, it's really a shame that they don't have him now because, man, Wakanda is so built into that whole Doctor Doom thing. I mean, Latveria, where Doctor Doom is from, is in direct war with Wakanda over their fucking vibranium supply.
Yeah, I mean, these are all things that can be retconned after an Infinity War
I
reality
agree.
warp, you know, with no issue.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen also. I think that they're going to pull some Fox X-Men trickery. I'm having a feeling that they're going to do actually some retconning in this next movie.
Yep.
So,
Quick predictions. In credit scene, the one that matters in game. What will it be?
oh, do you think? All right, that's why. But here's
No,
the
it's not.
no. Here's
It's
the
very
question:
specific.
Do you think that the X-Men or the Fantastic Four will appear in an end scene of Endgame?
Yes.
True or false?
Yes.
I kind
think
of
so.
feel that they will not, and that's because I think that they still have to come up with some plans for what they're going to do.
It's casting. I mean, unless they cast somebody in fucking 3 months, like if they announce as soon as it's done, we got Wolverine. Wolverine's going to be in that.
They're not
motherfucker.
good,
Look.
but they wouldn't announce it. They would announce it with the end scene.
No, that's John's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but I don't
in
know
That's
if
how we
credit
find out who
scene is a
Wolverine
hand-
is.
Is a hand with the claws coming
but
out.
the
That's
but
right,
the
credit
internet,
scene.
but the internet.
Well, I will say one thing that I think could happen is some maybe a reference to Xavier's school. You know,
Right.
because then you
Yes.
don't need to have. You don't have to show Professor X. You don't have to
That's-
show
yeah.
any of the characters. You just show the school or something.
I agree
Right,
that
right.
you could
Also-
totally do that.
Like, we're just regular people who follow internet news. These guys are in the company that knows it all. So while while the Fox deal goes through next week, they've been knowing what they're going to do for probably since they signed the papers, a year. It's casted. It's done. It's just not announced.
I don't think it's casted, honestly. I think they have an idea of who they want. I don't think it's officially casted, but I think this is probably what happened. Feige sat there and he said, okay, look, anything can happen, but look, it's likely that we're going to get it. So look, come up with plan A and come up with plan B. Plan A is if we get everything, and that's going to be the likely course. But if the unlikely event, something happens, make sure that we have a plan B so we know what to do with this shit once it's time to move forward.
I think I know what one of the end scenes will be. The very last one, I would have Deadpool wake up and go, God, I had the weirdest dream.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
If they had some kind of Deadpool one, that would be fantastic.
That would be awesome if they did that. And I think that would be really, I think that's the most appropriate one to do. Put Deadpool in there, and I mean, that would just be great. And you don't have to curse or anything. You just do something silly, and that would be really, really cool. So
the great thing about Deadpool is that you could do something, and then even if your plans change later on, it doesn't matter because it's just nuts.
Right. Exactly.
It's just so nuts. I mean, everything with Deadpool is nuts.
It's another joke for him later on.
Yeah, exactly.
He could wake up in a car in the passenger seat like, I just had the weirdest dream, and he looks over and it's Hugh Jackman driving the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, the only time Warner Brothers Warner Brothers are the only time that Warner Brothers came close to resurrecting anything when it came to Looney Tunes was the Animaniacs. Well, now they had to figure out a way to have the Animaniacs. Well, now we have a vulgar Animaniacs in Deadpool. So, I mean, it's pretty much what it is. So
that's what I'm hoping for. But I think it'll be, like Adam said, some like you see Professor Xavier's school or...
Yeah. I think that's the play.
You can drop the breadcrumb without revealing the casting.
For the Fantastic Four, even the Baxter Building.
Yeah.
Or even showing like a rocket launch in the distance or something. I don't know. A news report about... Yeah, like astronauts that were, hurt in orbit or something.
I think X-Men is the bigger.
Yeah, without a doubt.
From Feige's lips, though, he said that if in the event that they resurrect the Fantastic Four, which they are,
of course,
he said it's going to be a cosmic story. So that tells me that he's going to find a way to inject them a la Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think that's the right way to do it. Because those characters are meshed in with all that shit.
Yep.
And then after you get all that stuff done, you have them come back to Earth, you put fucking Namor in, and shit's on, boy. I mean, I think that's still a great story to be told.
I always thought Silver Surfer would be the hardest one, or actually Submariner. But now, I mean, after they pulled off Guardians of the Galaxy,
Marvel
and
can do
Thor,
anything they want.
They're nothing's impossible.
Once Ant-Man came out and was so successfully done, you can do anybody.
Yeah, amen to that.
You can pick any one of those characters and you can make a successful movie about it. I have a lot of faith in them that they get the right people to do that.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, before we go, we're going to get ready to wrap this up. But look, just round table here real quick. Thumbs up for Captain Marvel. Go see it at the movies or wait for video? Or
definitely thumbs up.
Thumbs way up for me, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And we'll be back for Endgame. Well, we'll be back. Our next show that we're going to do Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is going to be our next show. So, come and check that out. Give it a listen. You can join over at iTunes. Please subscribe. You can leave a review over there. You can also check us out on YouTube. And please join our Facebook group, PPVGuys. Thanks for listening. End scene. Oh, and hey, real quick. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely do it again. End scene.